Okay, so way to start off the new year with a horrific attack that took place in New Orleans. Now, there was an individual who rammed his car and left 15 people dead and dozens injured. And authorities currently, right now, are trying to piece together the picture. There's a lot that's coming together. And before we get started with the obvious overall case of it, President Biden, in his infinite wisdom, decided to address the nation and failed miserably at it. Not once, but twice. This is clearly a president on the final days of his administration that cannot inspire any confidence whatsoever. And our condolences go out to all the people in New Orleans. There's more developing in the story. And yes, to be clear here, there's currently an investigation seeing if this attack is adjacent or was coordinated with what happened in front of Trump Tower in Las Vegas. There will be more on that. And of course, we will be talking about that on tomorrow's show as authorities are still trying to come together and piece together this picture. But when I say keep your heads on a swivel, please keep your heads on a swivel. But first, Biden's address to the country and to the people. I've never seen such a pathetic attempt by this administration to try and calm fears down overall, then raise more questions about, well, how did this happen? Why was this allowed to happen? And it seems very suspicious as an oncoming Trump administration is getting into power that things seem to be getting out of control.
Our hearts are with the people of New Orleans after the despicable attack that occurred in the early morning hours. To all the families of those who were killed, to all those who are injured, to all the people of New Orleans who are grieving today, I want you to know I grieve with you. Our nation grieves with you. We're going to stand with you as you mourn and as you heal in the weeks to come. I want to thank our brave first responders and law enforcement personnel who stopped the attacker in his tracks before he could kill or injure even more people. And I want to thank you to everyone at the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, including the FBI, working nonstop to investigate this heinous act. The FBI is the...
Listen, I think we've all seen the meme right now where you have Bart Simpson in front of the class. The class is asking, stay the line, Bart, and Bart being the FBI. He was known to authorities the whole time. Isn't that odd? Isn't that suspicious? Sort of like what happened to Trump last summer of 2024. It's odd, not to mention, both the shooters having some connection to BlackRock, all these other large institutions. It's almost as if it's a horribly put together operation, but nonetheless.
The investigation to determine what happened, why it happened, whether there was any continuing threat to public safety. Here's what we know so far. The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack.
I don't know. This little puzzle that's being pieced together seems very odd. But let's say for a moment that this is, well, that organization. How is it with all of our surveillance over our phones, emails, text messages, etc., all these cameras, hell, taking off your shoes and waiting in a god-awful long line at the airport, they somehow snuck in or this stuff happened? How is it that even then, because let's be clear here, both individuals are currently right now, at least that's what according to authorities, U.S. citizens and also former servicemen in the U.S. military. How is it that this still flew under the radar with all their surveillance? In this day and age of online censorship, where you got to tiptoe around eggshells, don't you find it just a little bit odd that the hammer wasn't brought down? I mean, my goodness. How is it that this happened? With all these eyeballs everywhere, poof, happens.
Possible explosives were found in the vehicle as well, and more explosives.
And Seraph, with the winning comment for the day, paid malfeasance kit. Seraph, I want you to be wrong. I hope that you're wrong. But I will not say that because I think you hit the mark, buddy. Full on bullseye. And plus, with another dart to go right into that dart, a double bullseye back to back.
Were found nearby. The situation is very fluid, and the investigation has a preliminary stage. And the fact is that right now, excuse me.
Oh, God, he's lost. Hold on, we're rewinding that here real quick.
There you go.
Ah! Oh, let this nightmare end.
The law enforcement and intelligence community are continuing to look for any connections, associations, or co-conspirators.
It gets worse. Hold on. Because then comes the hard part, taking questions from the press. What do you think Joe Biden does? He walks away. There, spoiler alert.
May God bless the people of New Orleans. May God bless our police and our first responders. May God protect our troops, and we'll keep you fully contemporaneously informed. Thank you.
Have you spoken to President Trump? Have you visited New Orleans? Have you spoken to President Trump?
No more questions, people. That's Joe Biden, the president of, get this, these United States. Now, of course, there was another moment where Joe goes off to Camp David for more vacation. No comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. You think I'm joking here? No, folks, hang on, because we're going to get to the updates to this story as well, but we have to address our commander-in-chief first.
Any more information you can offer?
Jill, where you going? Please, everybody, notice what happens to Jill. All right, because here's the president. All right, you got him going on to Air Force One. Where's Jill at? Jill, where you going? Do you want to help your husband out?
Any more information you can offer?
Back up. You've all got my statement. I'll have more to say in the next hour or so.
Jill,
following what's going on. In
Jill, where you going? Jill,
do that.
Jill. Hold on, we're rewinding that. Sorry, folks.
In
Jill,
the next hour or so, following what's going on in New Orleans. I'll be happy to do that.
Do you understand the person crossed the border?
I'm not going to comment on any specific yet at all. I've contacted every agency in the federal government as well as the state. They're all coordinating to get to the bare facts. We know what the facts are.
Can you say if you were a foreigner or if you was domestic?
I'm not going to say anything until I get all the facts in front of me.
Has the suspect been identified? Has the suspect been identified?
Again, I'm not going to comment till I speak to the group later. I've spoken to every member of the agency, from the CIA to our national security team, to our FBI, NSC, and we're gathering all the.
listen, I've been reading the chats here. Shame on all of you for saying Jill's running away. Where did my audience learn to be this mean? But Mastermind Hour goes on the state. He stopped to tell them that he won't tell them anything. Don't worry, we have an update to inform all of you. Joe Biden's not going to say anything. Hardlands Media will. There you go.
I spent a lot of time with the government, with the
What was
mayor.
your reaction when you heard what happened?
Well, the reaction was one of anger and frustration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So what did you ask?
By the way, I just heard the reporter say, "What did you ask?" Well, you all are asking the same dumb question.
So what did you ask?
Well, he made it up the stairs, so credit where credit's due. Well done, Joe. The president of the United States. So let's talk about what's going on. Let's give some updates in regards to what happened in New Orleans. So here's what we know so far. The attack took place in New Orleans French Quarter at around 3:15 a.m. in the morning on January 1st, 2025, when people celebrating New Year's Eve New Year's Day, New Year's Day on Bourbon Street were struck by a white Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck, and it plowed through the densely packed crowd. We are very sorry for what happened to all the people there, and condolences to the families of the victims. Witnesses have described the truck as driving at high speed, purposely crashing into pedestrians and then into a construction crane. After the crash, the driver exited the vehicle and opened fire on responding police officers with an assault rifle. The shootout left 2 officers wounded before law enforcement took out the suspect, later identified as Sassoud Jin Jabbar, 42-year-old man. The weapons and suspected explosive device were discovered inside the vehicle, and that's what happened. There were, right now as it stands, 15 deaths. 12 victims died at the scene, while 3 others succumbed to their injuries at the local hospitals. Among the deceased were a mix of locals and tourists. Another 35 people were injured, including 2 officers who sustained gunshot wounds. Now, the person in charge, who is right now being identified, is Sassoud Jin Jabbar. The suspect is a U.S. Army veteran who served from 2007 to 2015 on active duty, and then continued in the U.S. Army Reserve until 2020. He was deployed to Afghanistan from February 2009 to January of 2010, and he held the rank of staff sergeant. Now, the ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which is causing the investigators to say, this could be a coordinated attack from that group. What better way to get us in deep in the Middle East if we haven't been in deep in it already? Not like there's a horrific crisis happening in Gaza, a supposed ceasefire in Lebanon, political instability in Syria, and a little back and forth between Israel and Iran. Say it with me, folks. What could possibly go wrong? We're starting 2025 off with a bang. Here's what I think about 2025 going off with a bang. Hey, here's what I think about it. More wars. What could go wrong?
And here's what I think about it.
Absolutely. Here's what I think about it. Now, right now, as it stands, people are right now trying to see if the attack that took place in Las Vegas is also connected to it. Investigators are still looking into it. But if there's ever a red flag to worry about further involvement or U.S. money, treasury, and people involved in the Middle East, boy, oh boy, this looks like a wonderful puzzle put together. And again, possible links to the Cybertruck blast. Again, I'm going to treat that story as separate until further update is given. On the same day, a Tesla truck exploded outside Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing 1 and injuring 7. Both vehicles involved in these incidents were rented through the same app, raising suspicions of a coordinated attack. Again, more on that later as we will look into it. But so far, investigators are looking into this, and I do want to pull up something else here. Again, this is from local authorities. People are saying that they don't know if it's a terrorist attack. People are saying that's a terrorist attack. But if we all know war, if we all know how the military-industrial complex likes to work together, they sure know how to sell it.
All of that makes a ton of sense. And we know there's a terrorist connection here. And, if you would have asked me this morning, I would say it's fairly obvious. There were IEDs in the area. The ISIS flag was very visible. It was right there on the back of his truck. And look, I understand you want to be cautious with information. I get that. I was press secretary during COVID-19. You have to be cautious.
Isn't it interesting how press secretaries get a nice cushy job, especially on corporate media, be it CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News? It's almost like it's all connected.
But why wasn't the FBI cautious in saying this? I want to play this from this morning. They were very clear that they could rule one thing out at 6 a.m. local time.
This is not a terrorist event.
What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not.
Why say that categorically when you had to correct yourself about an hour or so later?
Well, again, I can't wait to get confirmed Pete Hegseth, the SecDef, Kash Patel there in the FBI, and Tulsi Gabbard at ODNI. That's going to clean up a lot of this mess, because I can tell you this is absolutely a terrorist attack, and probably one of many. I wouldn't be surprised either if the symbolism of the Tesla truck blowing up in front of the Trump Tower wasn't somehow tied in on this as a way to try and intimidate and or threat President Trump. So what I would say is this: we need to determine whether or not this individual, bin Jabbar, did in fact go into Mexico 2 days ago. What that could tell us is that there's potentially a joint operational center of sorts with ISIS or with other terrorist factions.
Prim 54, it's always interesting that the media considers a coordinated attack like they are still hesitant to admit how deeply America and Turkey were involved in Syria. But it's also how we continue on with the suppression, because there's another aspect to this story. This happened on New Year's Day, both these attacks. And one side of looking at it is like, okay, we're going to be further involved in the Middle East. This is to be expected. I mean, the military-industrial complex is going to keep humming along. But, as I looked up in the beautiful sky of the first day of 2025, I saw something that I was very familiar with in 2024 and in 2023, 2022, hell, going all the way back to 2017. That jackboot of censorship. Look out for the eggshells. They're loaded, ready to go off. Keep your heads on a swivel, because I see that jackboot of censorship. And we'll be talking about censorship later on in the show.
In Mexico, who are commanding and giving activation orders. And so we need to start thinking about where the ties are. We need to start looking at how they were.
Notice he said going into Mexico. Oh, heaven forbid. Heaven forbid, U.S. forces in Mexico. Was there a presidential candidate who said we'd be getting involved in that? What could go wrong? Hell, there's talk about annexing Canada and Greenland. The American Empire.
Activated in extremism has become a prevalent manner, and then also what the motive was behind this. But I can tell you, this was absolutely a terrorist attack, and to rule that out by the FBI is foolish.
So, long story short, there's a couple aspects to this. Number one, we are looking at more laws and legislation that will probably be involved in surveillance. That's going to happen. There's also going to be more involvement in the Middle East, investment, of course. But it would be also foolhardy to think that this won't also lead us to have, again, more money into, getting involved in areas close to the border. And I get it. There is a crisis at the border. But now we're talking about expanding further operations. There's things that aren't adding up, but it also shines a light on how people either willfully or through negligence allowed this to take place. I mean, we hear about the surveillance state. We hear about how all of us are being spied in on. Hell, we've done domestic stories about how American citizens are being offered products and commercials when they go ahead and log on their social media platforms for stuff they talked about with maybe their friends or family members. And oh, surprise, surprise, the algorithm is just designing them and showing them products that they'd be more than happy to buy, happy to use, at a convenience of a click, a button away, and you could order it online. Yet somehow this incident and the incident in Las Vegas flew under the radar. Who's in charge? Where's the eyes on? The story is still being connected, but knowing how the system operates, there's going to be an attempt to try and connect both stories together. And if that is the case, how did this coordinated event fly under our big intelligence unless it was designed that way? I want to say that things are going to be better in 2025, but I have that pit in my stomach of further censorship and suppression happening, and it's not going to be pretty.